Height-wise,
what do you think?
Good. A little too much free play.
Too much free play?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, really, eh? You haven't seen Sheldon's yet.
Explain in 2 seconds, right? Too much free play is bad.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So that would be considered too much?
Yes. Drastic and a little low. It's a little better.
Oh, Sheldon, your riding is going to be thrown off.
I'm going to be a beast now.
I can't wait to see it.
Number 4. Number 1 and number 4 do not work very good. Number 1 kind of creates the same thing as we were talking about earlier with having the bars rolled too forward. Makes the front end very unstable, gives it a really quick steering, almost too much, so you get a lot of negative input from the steering that you don't want. Number 4 position, the rear bolt with the clamp 180 degrees from what they are now, so the bars are as far back as they can. Really puts the bars too close to your body position, and you can't get a good sweep on your body when you're trying to get into a good body position. So 1 and 4 don't work very well. Kind of rule of thumb, position number 2 if you're 6 feet and over, position number 2 if you're 6 feet and under, stock setting, which would be number 3. For now, a quick rundown. When the levers are like pointing at the ground like this, we should be ideally gripping our bike with the palm of our hand. And all our weight should be coming into the handlebars with the palm of our hand. If you're gripping the bike properly, your grip should be worn out right here. Because this is where all your weight's being transferred into your handlebar. So by having my lever like this, my palm is no longer engaged on my handlebar. So when I'm constantly riding down the trail, your hand will constantly be slipping off the handlebar. So when this is happening, you might not even realize this is happening, but you're going to hold on to the bar tighter. When you hold on to the bar tighter, it's going to create a lot of arm pump and a lot of fatigue. When I rotate my levers up, my palm is engaged on my handlebar. All my weight is directly coming down onto my palm, so I can put all my weight into it. I'm hitting bumps, and I'm not slipping off the handlebar. So one thing I didn't mention at the start of this bike setup is this bike setup is not something that works just for Chris. He still, sees a lot of the pro guys and does lots of special events with them and talks to the pro guys and see how they're all still setting up their bikes. But for one example of this is when you're still racing lots and doing Nuremberg, the day before the event, the organizers would round up all the top pros, take them off to a little private area. They'd do show off basically and do some photos for the press guys, do little interviews. And he said after all the press guys would leave, all the top guys would switch bikes and play around. And he said, besides slight little differences, all the bikes are set up the same. The quicker the bike is going to steer, if I have less showing on this fork, so it's pretty level with the top of the triple clamp, it's going to create more stability at higher speed. So again, we were saying with the bars, you can kind of set the bars slightly rolled back or forward to create to adapt to different riding areas. You can also play around with your fork tubes. Height. So right now, most of the new manufacturers have three lines on their forks, and they're talking like a 5 mil gap between each line. I think they come in position 2 for the most part, stock, which is probably pretty good for riding Cat Lake and stuff like that. If you're going to the interior again, somewhere at higher speed, or to Baja, we're going to go ride the sand dunes. I would drop my fork tube down, try to create more stability at high speed, and I'd roll my bars slightly back if I was going to Baja or something like that. If you are going to play with this fork height, it's really, really important that you torque these back to spec. KTMs for the most part are 17 Newton meters and 12 Newton meters. Why that's important is because there's a bushing on this lower stanchion that sits here, and that's what keeps this lower stanchion nice and square in this tube. And when this inner tube, lower stanchion is coming up, if this is really tight, it actually gets a little bit pinched, and it doesn't work super smooth, and it'll wear out your bushing prematurely. And then once your bushing starts wearing out, this tube starts walking around in this tube, and then your fork seal start leaking. So it's really important if you do play with your fork height to torque these back. Flying through here and you just stood on your back brake, doesn't really stop you, it just skids. So you want to think about your back brake as something to help create stability in your bike. If you really need to slow down, you want to use your front brake, but you never want to brake without stability. So you want to use your front brake, or your back brake and your front brake in a combo to help come to a really good stop. So for setting up the back brake, we want the pedal, the brake pedal, to be slightly higher than our foot peg, just slightly. And then you need a certain amount of free play in your brake pad, in your brake pedal. And we want the free play, when the free play is gone, we want the brake pedal to be in line with our foot peg. You definitely need to have to adjust some of those. Standing position. And if my brake pedal's really low or I have a lot of free play, to press on the brake, my knee and my hip is coming forward. This is not good. We don't want our knees and our hips coming forward on us. If we're in a good riding position and I got a brake and it's really low, I'm constantly doing this with my knee. This is putting a lot of body input into the bike that I don't want. And just think about if you went over an obstacle, or let's say you pulled a big wheelie, maybe by accident, and you're in the back seat. Right here, I can get to my brake pedal. If my brake pedal's really low and there's a lot of free play, I gotta do this to get to it. That's not good. We want our brake pedal slightly, like I was saying, above our foot peg, and the toe of our boot just hovering it. The most important thing when we're in a seated position are our hips. Ideally, our hips should always be above the foot pegs. The foot pegs are the center of your bike. That's where your center of gravity should be at all times. So in a seated position, our hips should always be above the foot pegs. The most common seated position you'll probably see people doing is this. One reason we don't want to be here is because you can see if I'm going down the trail, I'm sitting like this. My back suspension is doing a lot of work. My front forks are doing nothing. So this is creating a very light front end. If I shift my hips up here, bouncing down the trail, now both my forks and my shock are kind of moving and balanced. The bike's way more balanced. So for our seated position, our feet, we kind of want to be on the balls of our feet to some level. We want everything tight against the bike. Hips above our foot pegs, strong lower back, looking ahead obviously. Our elbows should always be the widest part of our body. Chris used to say keep your elbows up, so he'd get a lot of people riding like this, which is not good either. You want to just keep them wide and strong. Our good strong lower back, shoulders back, our head up, our elbows wide. And then when we're gripping the bike, like I said earlier, we want all our weight coming down into the palms of our hands, wearing out our grips out here. And we want to think about gripping the bike like turning a doorknob or a screwdriver for our throttle. So a lot of guys, you might read online, call it the V grip. So when I'm coming down into my handlebars to grip the bike, I should be gripping it like this, with one or two levers on the one or two fingers on the levers. 3 or 4 is not good. If you have more than 2 fingers on the lever, you don't have a whole lot of grip on the handlebar. So this V grip, what I was saying, think about turning a doorknob or a screwdriver for your throttle hand. Probably the most common grip is gripping the bar like this, in tight like this. And when I do that and I give it throttle, my elbow's dropping. If I grip it like a doorknob or a screwdriver, I can give it throttle and it doesn't affect my elbow.
Light bulb just went off there.
Interesting.
So part of the reason a lot of people ride with their heels locked in. When my heels are locked in on the foot pegs, I have about that much movement preload I can put on the bike. We do some drills this afternoon. Preloading our bike to get over obstacles is super important. So now that when I get on my balls of my feet, I have flex in my ankles. I can really preload the bike. Much easier than when I'm locked in with my heels. I get about this much. So think of your ankles as another set of suspension. You want to think of our bike, probably you've never heard this before. I definitely didn't. We want to think about our bike as you and the bike as a triangle. So we have our front axle and our rear axle, the top of our head. That's the triangle. Really tall triangle is less stable than a very low triangle. So our head is really, really important when we're riding our bikes, and controlling our head movements is really important. So we don't want this head, we don't want the head to be super tall and flopping around on the trail. We want to take that really high triangle and lower it. So a good riding standing position. Can you hold the bike again? I'm on the balls of my feet. My knees are locked in above my foot pegs. I'm going to bend at the hips, not at the back. As I'm bending at the hips, my butt's coming back and my head's dropping down. My head should be slightly in front of my handlebars. My elbows are going to be wide again. All the weight is coming into the palms of my hands. And I got one or two fingers on the bars, on the levers. I'm doing that with the grip. So this is a good standing position. This is a really typical bad standing position. The more common bad riding position looks something like this. So my head's really tall, my butt's tucked under me. And this is a part of the reason why people get bar risers. Because they're riding like this, and maybe they're tall and they're hunched over like this, so they're bending through the spine and not at the hips. And they're like, oh, my back is really sore. Oh, this sucks. Oh, if I get bar risers, I can stand really tall. This is great. As we were just explained, this is not really a good position to be in. This is why we should get rid of bar risers. Bar risers encourage bad riding habits. It really encourages bad body position. In a good standing position, and I want to go to a seated position, so good neutral position, standing. If I want to go to a seated position, Chris likes to say, try to retrain your brain and don't think seated, think knees forward. So if I'm here, knees forward.
Yeah.
Knees back for standing, knees forward for sitting. Knees back for
Just
standing.
like that on any training.
So
like trials training.
by doing this, my head and my upper body's not changing. It's staying pretty stationary. So like I said earlier, we really want to control our head movement. By doing this position, my head's not moving. My bike, you can see my bike's not changing. There's not a whole lot of input into the bike compared to this. A whole lot of bad stuff is going on with my bike compared to a good neutral to sitting. And one thing we want to think about, wherever our back tire goes, that's where our hips should be going. So we technically should be riding down the trail in a good neutral standing position, and our hips should be doing this, following that back tire. By following the back tire, I'm weighting the back tire, creating good traction and good drive when I need it. If I'm in a bad body position, like I said earlier, I got this much movement in my hips. It's really not weighting the back tire at all. So you've probably experienced that we're coming into lots of little braking bumps into a corner maybe, and that back end's really bouncing around on you. Just by pushing your hips back over that back tire, it'll really, really settle it down. It makes a huge difference. One thing I noticed about a few people, you're doing and a few other people, is that back brake. You really just want to have the toe of our boot hovering over that back brake when you get too far forward.
So I went like that?
Yeah, you're coming in like this, so he was coming in more like that. So what's happening now is his heel is locked in on his foot peg, and it's really hard to get a good feathering feel for your back brake when it's under here. It more becomes an on-off switch. So if you have it under the toe of your boot, you can feather that back brake a little more. It's much easier to get a feel for your back brake than stomping on it. Shifting the foot forward. Stomp, stomp, stomp. So think about that when you're braking, about where your toe is on top of that brake pedal. Like I said, people with smaller feet, you might want to consider getting that offset brake pedal. So it pushes it back a little bit, makes it a little easier to find it, and have it right there underneath your toe. But overall, not bad at all, pretty good actually. So if you guys were to kind of come across a log this big, would you want your front wheel to clear this?
I'd be tapping near the top.
Exactly. Okay, a lot of people think they want to get their front wheel over this log to get over it. If you clear this with your front tire, your back tire is going to smash into it and give you a big buck. So ideally you want to slam your tire into the front of this log. That's going to preload the front suspension, and when it unloads the suspension, and it's also going to preload the back suspension. And once that suspension unloads, it helps give you that lift and create the lift and get you over the log and the obstacle. Important factor with this, and making this really look nice and smooth and consistent and nice and even, is your hip placement. So if you do everything perfect, smash your front wheel into here, preload that suspension, get good lift. If you don't get your hips back, there's a really strong possibility that you're still going to get that bucking sensation. By shifting my hips back, it'll really eliminate all that bucking feeling. And again, if I stuff up the front approach, maybe get my wheel a little too high so it skims over this. If I shoot my hips back, it'll stop a lot of the bucking. So your hip placement is really important, and it can really stop all that bucking, whether you do it perfectly or not perfectly. They don't need a lot of speed, and by really getting... So you want to think about your throttle as your generator, and your clutch as your distributor. So that's how I'm going to distribute that power to the ground, is through my clutch. So it's not so much using my throttle on and off, it's more using my clutch to get that power to the ground. If I'm on and off the throttle a lot, especially with hill climbs, it's one of my bad habits I have is getting into a hill climb and on and off the throttle. If you got a good speed going, you really want to keep the throttle consistent, and if you need that extra, like Chris says, 1 or 2 horsepower, or you need to slow down, you want to turn your clutch into your throttle to control it. More so if I'm doing a hill climb, let's say, and I'm constantly on and off the throttle on a really loose hill climb, every time I'm on and off the throttle, I'm getting wheel spin. When I'm getting wheel spin, I'm losing my drive. So if you can get into a habit of holding that clutch, that RPM at a certain point, and controlling that RPM with your clutch instead of on and off the throttle.
Nice. Okay, this is fun. This is the Chris Birch training session, posted on by Wayne Hodder, I think his name is. We just spent the whole morning doing all the basics. Probably the most important part of the training. Great. Holy crap. Fuck. keep up with Katarina here. Oh. Yes, so we just started the trail section of the ride. There you go, shoulder. Whoa! Whoa! Yeah. No! That was not how to do it. Whoa! You're good. Yeah.
Back, you should get a lot more drive and a lot more traction and less wheel spin.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing, maybe some of you guys know this, some of you don't. You get stuck on a climb, especially on a road like this. It's really loose, a single track climb. If you get stuck, to get going again, you should always have one foot on the peg and one foot on the ground to get going. So depending on the terrain, for this is a little lower for me to have a foot on the ground. So this side's a little higher. So in this scenario, I'd have this foot on the foot peg, this foot on the ground. And what I was always doing wrong, and Chris pointed out to me and made a huge difference, was the foot I'd have on the ground, I'd have it here. I'd try to get going and push off with this foot.
Yeah.
Try to go with my momentum. So what's happening is when my foot is here, my bike's going forward obviously, and my leg's getting left behind.
Yeah.
So I'm riding away from my body.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do with the foot that's on the ground is have it as far forward as possible.
Oh.
You want to have it up here.
That's yeah.
This foot on the foot peg, pressing into the foot peg to create traction for your back wheel. As soon as you get enough momentum going, you want to drag that foot up to that foot peg and press down into it to try to create more traction. And if it was something like this and I was getting going from here, as soon as I had enough momentum and had both feet on the peg, I would get my hips back. Try to create even more drive from the back wheel.
Wow. Fraser thought we were going to the hill climb, so.
Oh no, sorry. Well, we were, but we're gonna go to a different hill climb now.
Yeah.
Take a different route line. Sorry.
It's okay.
So we got everyone now? Is there another?
Fraser's just sitting at the hill climb with the
Oh.
Well, yeah, we're not going there.
with him, or?
We're not going there. We're going to another hill climb apparently.
Sorry, change of plans. We're gonna go to a hill climb in the woods because it's gonna be smoking hot there.
Yeah.
That hill has been
Hot and
attacked.
loose.
Because that Solskjaer ride, I'm sure that hills have been attacked fucking 300 times today. It's gonna be super dry and dusty and hot and really hard, technical, in the loose.
We're going to the one with the little step to the right.
Yes.
Want me to go get him?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And you guys, yeah, totally.
Okay.
Please. So, you guys can try from here if you want. So the key point to this, to get going, is always have one foot on the foot pegs. Try not to pull away with no feet on the foot pegs.
Right.
The bike's don't weight it, and you can't get a good traction on your back wheel. When I have one foot on the foot peg, I can really press down into my suspension and load up that back tire. and create good traction. And when I have my foot far forward, as I'm going, I'm riding into my foot instead of having it back here and riding away from it. It's really simple, but it makes a big difference. So really think about that good low triangle and getting that hips back to create lots of good traction. It's going to be a pretty loose climb. Carry as much momentum at the bottom as you can and speed. Having too much speed at the top of a hill climb is a really good thing. It's really easy to fix that. Stop the throttle or pulling the clutch. Going too slow and trying to create speed at the top of a hill climb is a lot tougher, a lot bigger issue. So too much speed is never a bad thing. It's really easy to correct, and it's really hard to get speed at the top if you don't have enough. Look up, look up.
Nice. This looks like Katerina. Yep. Whoa. I say no.
You want to come hang out?
Good to see you, Sean.
Yeah, take care, Gary.
Yeah, you too.
We're gonna hang out for a bit. I don't know.
That was great. Yeah, I do remember you.
Yeah, you rode. By the time we got you at the top of KTM country, you were
I was done.
like, holy fuck! But
I'm going back.
I'd been in that scenario many times, and I knew that it wasn't as steep, and I knew it would calm down, and I knew you would calm down, and it would be fun.
That was first thing in the morning. KTM country. It's like I'm going to puke my guts out. Fuck you guys.
Straight up. That's a good couple thousand feet, I think.
Yep,
Who
that's
Who were
right.
you up at Onion with then?
Well, with Anthony Tholad.
Anthony, right.
Yeah, Anthony and
There's maybe like 6 of us in the group.
yeah,
Okay.
and Steve on the Sherco.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
Clausen.
Clausen.
Yeah. They were at the top at Twilight there, and they were all up there because they have 250s and 300s, and I'm at the back with the 150, and they can hear my bike just screaming. I thought it was just going to blow up, and they're like, "Yeah, get up here, get up, get up."
It's a good climb, man.
Yeah,
Every time I get there, I'm kind of huffing.
yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, have fun.
Okay.
See you in the
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
When you're doing a trail like this, like just a regular windy trail, nice and tight, do you still have your front finger on the front brake?
Yes.
Really, because there's such a, you get a little bit too much of the front brake on any of those, and you're
Well,
just.
I'm not applying it, but I have my finger. I just always have a habit of having my finger.
I see.
on top of
So you're
it.
training yourself not to use it
Yeah, totally.
in your mind. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I definitely always have 1 or 2 fingers on top of the lever.
Yeah, I tend to have one, but then I get spooked out when I do a trail that fast trying to follow you. That if I just touch it,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely not applying front brake, but I'm definitely have my fingers on top of it.
got it.
What's that?
Dragging the back brake?
Yeah,
Have experience? Yeah, that's cool, eh?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, it really settles the back end down. And you can use it not to just settle the back end down, but like if you really want to get aggressive through a really choppy system and you want to get on the gas, get on that back brake and straight, just settles the whole bike right down. You can get through obstacles a little cleaner.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's a neat little trick. So thanks a lot, guys, for coming out. It's really awesome, and hopefully I explained everything properly and you guys learned a few things. So like I mentioned it earlier, right now you're probably a little excited, maybe a little bummed about your riding ability, how I was when I first did this climbing 2 years ago. And like I said, I went into the bush right away and I thought I was instantly going to be a better rider. It kind of didn't quite work out that well until I did my drills, and really there's too much going on in your brain to really think about everything all at once that we talked about today. So doing the drills really helps with all that. And how much your riding is going to improve after doing this clinic is up to you right now. The more you put in on the practice drills, the better and the quicker your riding is going to improve. So Chris passing all this knowledge on to me, I'm passing it on to you. If you really want to get, we can only do so much in a day. So if you really want your riding to improve, now that you know what you should be doing and not doing, it's totally up to you guys how far you take it from here and how much you improve.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think we're done. Hopefully everyone learned something.
Thank you.
Let's go have some beers.
Yeah, fantastic.
Awesome, thanks guys.